Welcome to the Mindful Healers Podcast with
Dr. Jessie Mahoney
and Dr. Nicheng Liang.
We are here to help you learn to pause and be present, awaken your breath, and harness the ripple effects of mindfulness for radiant health.
We get you. We know you. We are you.
We have both been successful on the surface, yet struggling underneath. We have both had cluttered brains, been overwhelmed, and exhausted.
We're healers who have found solutions and want to share them with you.
Join us here to discover a better way.
Today's episode is something special you can't find anywhere else. Quick reminder that nothing in this podcast should ever be taken as medical advice. The inspiration of this podcast is the completion of the 14th Nourish and Transform Mindfulness Coaching, Yoga, and Culinary Medicine Retreat. And we've been planning to do this podcast for a few months. We were actually inspired after retreat number 12, but all in good time. And we've had such clarity this fall that there is nothing else like this retreat that we're offering within the CME world or even outside of the CME world. We realized in our conversations on the way home from these retreats is that those who were coming were early adopters and that they were getting this awesome best deal, this hidden experience that someday was going to be something much bigger and much more amazing than what we were doing now. And we thought it would be fun to share a little bit more about what we do and why we do these things and what's happening on the mountaintop, essentially, so that those of you who are regular listeners won't hesitate to join us, won't ruminate about the decision or decide to come in 2025 or 2026 because it's already evolved and changed. And our hope is that you will join us now. That being said, our intent is actually not to push you or pressure you or create any urgency to sign up because all the retreats are filling. So we don't need you to sign up. We just want to share what's fun and amazing about it. We hope to inspire you and share with you some of the magic and what's possible so you can feel confident and clear if you decide to come. So we encourage you to stay on and listen to this fun conversation. And Mark has agreed to join me again for, I think, his third podcast. And I have a few more requests in the works. So I'm grateful for his willingness to join and share his contribution and his thoughts as someone who's been at every minute of all of the 14 previous retreats. Our intention is to share the magic and the why of what we do so you understand better. And also that you understand that the retreat is not an experience for everyone. It's for those who specifically desire or craves to do something special, unique, small, in nature, that's beautiful, transformative, and literally has some component of magic in it. And we often talk in this podcast about what intentions are, and intentions are a wish or an aspiration. We set that at the beginning of yoga. And so with intention, we set our intentions at the beginning of a podcast to help you listen with your own purpose and calmness and clarity. We hope that at the end of the episode, you will decide to join us, and remembering that one never knows what will happen in life, and that from our perspectives, these are something that you'll wish you hadn't missed out on, and certainly something we are certainly glad we didn't miss out on creating. We are also introducing a new tradition in this podcast before we begin our discussion to take a pause. And in the Sagrada spirit, today's pause is going to be a pause to arrive, which is something that we do every morning, the first morning of yoga at Sagrada. And we intentionally take a moment and arrive physically, body, mind, and spirit all in the same place. And taking a breath to settle in to your body. And perhaps bringing a hand to heart if you're not driving. And just take a moment to arrive here in this space of listening. And then to settle in and enjoy. We're going to start with the story of the retreat. I often get asked how these retreats came to be, How did we end up doing them where we're doing them? And what's the story? So the retreats really were not a planned thing. They really began as sort of a whim during COVID. And I like to think of them as not a silver lining, but a gold lining of COVID, if you want to think about it that way. And in the spring of 2021, we were on what I will call a COVID vacation, which of course was a rescheduled family vacation because someone had COVID. And my sister-in-law had found the place that we offer the retreats online before COVID and had been there and had thought it would be a great place to take a vacation. Because during COVID, you could rent it as not a retreat center because all retreats had been shut down. And then she got COVID or had a exposure and we had to reschedule. So we went in the spring. And the beautiful thing about Sagrada, which is the retreat that we're speaking about, is it's mostly outside and all the rooms are single rooms and there is tons of beautiful nature. And so when we arrived there for this family gathering where we were eating outside and spending all our time in open spaces to ensure not to infect one another from different parts of the country, it occurred to me that this was a beautiful place that would work for women physicians who are struggling during COVID. And there was such a need for respite and relaxation and healing and growth and transformation. At that point, I had been coaching for about 1.5 years. And it was so clear to me that if we could bring people together, it would be a powerful experience. And the other thing about this location is it has the most beautiful yoga room. And I had never been in a place that had such a beautiful yoga room and the perfect setup for all of the humans that I work with. So I asked if it would be possible, and there was a spot 6 weeks later. And so I took it and we did the first retreat, and that sort of was the beginning of the story. The other piece of the story was because it was during COVID, there were no caterers, no one to help with cooking. And so thankfully, Mark stepped in and was willing to do the cooking. And after the first retreat, it was something that was so loved. And the message was you have to keep Mark. And so even though he only agreed to do it for one, he's still here after number 14 and hopefully for the duration. The other thing I'll say is many people have asked me, well, how did I think I could run a retreat or how did I know how to run a retreat? And it occurred to me that my dad has always run study abroad programs. And so they're very much like retreats. And I grew up traveling and being with him while he worked and did these retreats. And even funnier is that one of Mark's first chefing gigs was as a chef for my dad when someone canceled. And when he was, 20, 21. So
in Ireland.
Yeah, in Ireland. So it's a full circle moment, us putting this out there. And so much has happened since then. A lot of evolution in the programming and the food and the experience. And it's become essentially, I'm going to call it a true labor of love or a family affair, a team affair. And that is the story, my story of the retreats. I did want to give Mark a chance to add anything because I know from experience and working together with your spouse, they always have a different story. So is there anything that you want to add or contribute to the story?
No, I think it's funny that you say when we first stayed there, it occurred to you this might work as a retreat center because I remember it being much more like a thunderbolt epiphany. It struck you from the sky and you kept walking around the place going, oh, this could work. This could be great. Wait, Mark, come look at this room. This room works. And we just walked around the whole thing and you were just bedazzled. And anybody who knows you knows that you immediately started churning the gears and making the effort to start planning your first retreat. So,
and I will say, with loving amusement for myself, once I get an idea in my head, it generally happens. And so it's not really a surprise that it happens, but I'm one of those people who doesn't hesitate when they have a epiphany or a great idea. I'm willing to try it and see what happens. So that's how they began. And over time, we have kept a very clear intention to keep them unique. And the number one piece that keeps coming up over and over again is the size. And why would we do a retreat that's so small and so intimate? And the answer is it's very intentional. And so these retreats have 7 women participants, and that is just magical. And I hear that time and time again, that people love the size, they love the safety of the size. And it's not something that people have ever experienced in a CME experience. And the fact that it is a group, you get to know one another, but it's not so overwhelming. So it's great for introverts. It's great for people who don't like big or being lost, or who aren't really sure how to navigate big settings, or maybe it just is a lot for people. It's also really fabulous for people who stress about social settings. I think it's very natural, easy size to explore new things and try new things. And the small group really creates, to me, this loving dynamic that happens pretty fast each time. There's a sense of safety and belonging and opportunities for individual attention, which I don't think happen in any other retreat. I have been on a lot of retreats myself, and this is something that just doesn't happen there. I'm also decided, at least for now, that I'm committed to offering one-on-one coaching. And what I realize is that investment of my time is magic for the retreat, but 7 people is the most I can do and still run a retreat and teach yoga and do all the other things that I do. So I think that the size is very intentional, and a huge piece of the magic in terms of what people go away with, the very vulnerable but safe space, and the sort of deep connections that get formed while people are there. The other thing about the small size that is partly the small size and partly my approach to these things is that the small size allows me to personalize the retreat. So personalize it for people who are there, adapt the schedule for what we need, and shifting to the needs of the group and the levels of yoga. And I hear time and time again from people at the end that they love it. When they come, they're a little bit flustered that there's no printed written agenda that doesn't change, and they know when things are going to happen. It's not what they're used to. And by the end, I always get the feedback that that's one of the things they loved the most, was that it changed and was adapted for the group and where they were and what they needed and the weather and all kinds of other things. And so that, I think, is a really beautiful thing. Those that come also are choosing this type of retreat. And so that makes it a really beautiful thing. It's not it's not a spa. It's not a big conference, and you have to like nature, and you don't have to be a yogi, but you have to be willing to try it. And you have to be somewhat interested in trying mindfulness. I think many people think you have to be a yoga person or a mindfulness person. And to me, you just have to be somebody that wants to change your life and do something that's good for you and feels good and explore things. But if you're not interested in doing that, or you're not interested in spending time in community and making connections with other people doing the same thing, a small group of people, then it really isn't for you. It's not for someone who wants to, be gone half the day and come back in. So it's a very special experience. And I think because people show up for it with that in mind, that's part of why it becomes so magic. Do you have any thoughts about that, Mark?
I agree. I think the people that show up at Sagrada for our retreats, they have been sifted very finely by the universe. And so they come from different places, and they're different kinds of doctors, and they have different stories, but they're all kind of at the same place in their lives and careers. And they're open to change, and they're open to making connections and friends. And I see the level of friendship and connection grow every day during the retreat. The size also works magically, I think, because everyone can sit around the table for all the meals. There's only one table, everybody's facing each other, and everyone is in a circle for yoga. You're not in rows and rows, so you're way in the back. Everybody's together in community every day. And I think it makes a big difference.
It's a really nice circle. We're a circle in coaching too, as it turns out. We're in a lot of circles, it turns out. Not on the mountaintop. We line up so we can all have a good view. But otherwise, we are in a circle, and it's a nice size. So I wanted to reflect a little bit on the location, which is part of the magic, though I think there are probably other locations in the world that could also work. But this location is really special to us, and I think to those who come. It's a beautiful spot in nature with beautiful light. And it's really just a magical piece of land. And it's 100% not a spa. It's not a hotel. There's not a conference room in sight. There's no screens anywhere. Even to be, some other spots that I work in, which are beautiful in nature, we still have to fold up the screens and move them out of the way because people have screens. This Sagrada has no screens anywhere. You couldn't have one if you wanted. And it's what I would say is secluded in that you feel like you are there in the middle of nowhere. And yet it's quite easy to get to. It's only 30 minutes from the airport. And for you who has to pop in to get groceries, it's 10 minutes from a tiny store and 25 minutes from a big store. And so it has all of these sort of amazing benefits. And many people don't realize when they arrive that we rent the whole retreat center for these retreats. So it's just us. There's nobody else there sharing the pool or the hot tub or the mountaintop. There are caretakers there who have actually become integral, loving people in our retreats. But other than that, it's us and it's ours for the week. And when I originally created the retreats, I really thought people would leave. I thought that they would go places and I should schedule it in that way. And what I would say is this location is such that people don't leave. They show up the first day and they literally don't leave, except for maybe once if we go on a group thing to see the ocean, or they go on the last day, or they come a day early. I've noticed, I recommend for a lot of people to come a day early or stay a day late. And the design of the retreat, actually, I should say, I usually try to have days on either end that are weekend days so people don't feel a rush to leave. And the content is also what I would say is niche, right? It's designed with intention. It's not it's only me. There aren't a bunch of speakers coming in occasionally. You will speak, and sometimes Ann Kennard comes and shares, but it's not, there's not a program and a whole collection of conference speakers. And what we do there is designed very much with intention. So the modalities that I teach are all synergistic, meaning they work together. And a lot of the work is around the parasympathetic nervous system and repleting and helping us practice kindness towards ourselves. And all of those things make it such that the coaching works and the transformation works, and they actually work for long-term change. So it's not really designed to be just a 5-day retreat in nature. I design it to be the beginning or capstone of a lot of a complete transformation journey. And I see that all the time. Do you have thoughts about those two things?
I agree. And that's how the food is designed too. It's not only supposed to be healthy and nourishing, but also a little surprising and a little inspiring, so that when you leave Sagrada, you have inspiration, ideas, and even recipes on how to make changes with the way you're eating in your life too.
And what are your thoughts on the Sagrada itself? Why we do it there? What's magic about it? I love hearing everyone's different perspective.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, and I'm very thankful because living in San Francisco, we don't really see much change of seasons, and so going to Sagrada 8 or 10 weeks a year, every few weeks, you get to see that change of seasons in every part of Sagrada, from the grasses and the flowers to the level of the pond, and it's always magical, even when it's cold or when it's hot. It's beautiful in all seasons.
I think that's one of the things that has surprised me over the last 3 years that we've been doing this, is that I've never had a time there where it's not beautiful. And I think I often come and say, oh, it won't be as beautiful this time. Like, it's not wildflower season, so it won't be as beautiful. And I'm always amazed at how beautiful it is. And we've lived in California our whole life. So I think we do pick the weeks with intention. And yet I'm now thinking it probably doesn't matter at all, because everyone has been wonderful. And in the cold, the environment is different. And we have cozy fires and cozy yoga. And the yoga studio is magical in the rain. And during wildflower season, it's also incredible. So there's just so many different options. And the space works all the time. So I thought I'd pivot to yoga a little bit. And I'm going to actually put you on the spot, Mark, and ask you. I think I talk about my yoga all the time. So I'm curious what you think about my yoga from the outside. And of course, you watch us walk into the room and walk out of the room. And so I'm curious how you would describe the yoga experience.
I mean, from my perspective, it doesn't really fit into any neat categories that I know of in yoga, and I'm not sure what all people are expecting, but it seems a little different than that. It's not a sweaty yoga type where everybody is in their jazzercise clothes or whatnot. It's very calm and nourishing and relaxing, and people seem really grounded when they're finished.
Yeah. And I think I hear from many people that they've never experienced a kind of yoga like that. And I like to point out that yoga is, of course, a philosophy and a way of moving through the world. And it's a practice of mindfulness, and it's a practice of self-compassion. And I think it's also a practice of coaching and mindset work, honestly, and they can't really be separated, at least in the way that I offer them. And many people, I think, well, I'm not a yogi. And you are more than welcome. There are tons of not yogis that come, or people who are new to yoga. It's a perfect place, actually, to grow a yoga practice. And what's really unique about the yoga here is there's no other place where I practiced yoga where we had a whole yoga studio for 8. And we had all of the blocks and bolsters and mats and everything that we might need to support people to build a practice. And in fact, after last week's retreat, someone mentioned that, they didn't even like yoga. They came anyway because they wanted to do the coaching and eat your food. And but one of the things that they were most surprised by was that they had learned to love yoga, and they didn't know that you could support yourself like that, so that you could actually experience the benefits, physical benefits and emotional benefits of yoga. And so I just like to offer, it's as you said at one point recently, it's an experience. It is yoga. I think people who love traditional yoga also love it, but it's a very kind, loving, nurturing, nourishing experience. There's no hot yoga. It's really designed to replenish and replete and retrain your nervous system. I will say that by the end of a week of practicing yoga twice a day, I feel pretty great, and I'm much stronger. I always feel each time stronger than when I started, but that happens in the back end, and it's not necessarily an intentional, let's do a plank pose for a minute and sit here and shake.
Yeah, people might not realize that you don't have a set of classes all teed up that you do the same way every day. If they saw you before a yoga class, they'd see you like furiously scribbling notes and looking up quotes. And it seems to me that every class is designed for that day, for those people, and it's a very bespoke experience.
Yeah, I will say, actually, you've told me many times, why don't you just teach the same class? It'd be a lot easier. And I just can't, because I love creating the classes. It's so fun. And I also think that that's what makes it such a unique experience. And so literally the morning of, I'm very much a morning person, and that's when I'm the most creative. And I know what's happened for the group the day before. And so I can then weave what's happened the day before into the yoga class. I know where people are, I know what they're working on. And that to me is part of the beauty and just great fun of the retreats, and something that you really can't get anywhere else. And I don't really get that opportunity. I teach a lot of yoga on Zoom, and if anybody wants to join me there or for YouTube classes, you'll get a sense of what my yoga is like, but I don't know who's coming to those classes, and I don't know what happened for them the day before. And so, I still think they're awesome. The ones at Sagrada are really very special and personalized and creative. And I spend time the first day or two figuring out where people are in their yoga practice. And so I craft classes that work for the group and offering variations for different levels, if sometimes there's different levels, and we work on different things depending on where people come. We can all benefit. There's so many things we all need to work on. The mindfulness piece, I also wanted to reflect on, because my approach to mindfulness, I know, is very different, and most of our listeners will know that. I'm very much into practical mindfulness, But at the retreats, I like to weave the mindfulness seamlessly into the whole experience in the day. And so while we do specifically go out and do a golden light meditation, which is magical and something that I haven't had that many other opportunities to do in such a beautiful place. And there's mindfulness in yoga. I also infuse it into the coaching, and there's also downtime for journaling and thought downloads, which are specific mindfulness practices. And we do sound baths, and we have all kinds of different sort of practices that are woven into the day with the intention that you can leave with a ton of practices. You can leave with breathing tools, things that you can do at home that you will actually do, that you enjoy, that you like. And the restorative yoga, in fact, in particular, my aim is not that you go home loving restorative yoga and do group practices, but that you know what poses work for you and what poses work for your nervous system and your lifestyle, whether you're a shift worker or a clinic person, and so that you can actually get benefit in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And I believe that's true about mindfulness. Mindfulness and wellness is not sort of a checklist activity. A lot of people will come to the retreat with a checklist. I do my mindfulness here, and then I do this, and then I do that. And what they realize is that the greater benefit is really learning how to weave it into your life more seamlessly. And I would say not just your life, but you're weaving it into your nervous system, what it feels like, and into your body, what it feels like, so that you can then go back to that when you get back to your life, so it's accessible. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the whole retreat's very mindful. We try to make the meals very mindful. It's a nice opportunity. Lots of people that come have kids, and they're responsible for cooking, and meals are very chaotic and stressful. And this is an opportunity where nobody has to cook unless they want to. They don't have to worry about what's on the menu. They can just come together and eat together. And I think it's a very mindful experience.
One thing you've mentioned to me that I think would be worth mentioning also is what you notice about people's sort of faces and bodies and energy from the first night to the third night to the fifth night. And you've commented on sort of what you watch happen. Do you have any thoughts on sharing about that?
Yeah, it's there's definitely a pattern that I've begun to notice. Most people show up and they're amazed that they made it all the way from wherever they're come. They look a little shell-shocked. They clearly don't know what to expect on day one. Day two, people start to get to know each other, get to know you. They start to relax. It seems the weight comes off their shoulders. And then by day three, the magic starts. It's every time. And for the rest of the time, it's just people growing closer and looking more relaxed, more confident, better able to face the rest of the world.
I notice, you take a fair amount of pictures, and I try to snap photos here and there. And I've actually begun taking photos of people on the last night when we're after we do our golden light meditation, if the weather cooperates on the last night, or whenever we do. And people tell me they can't believe that they look like that. They've never looked like that. And so it's actually a shift in physical appearance as well, I think.
We should do that next time when they arrive. We'll just take their picture right after they get out of their car. We'll show it to them right before they leave.
They might not want to see that one. No, I think that, and that's not really fair because they've been traveling. But what I noticed is a huge difference in just the way people carry their shoulders and the way that they sit and the way that they talk and the way that they breathe. And, you can't but help change how you breathe when you're breathing and practicing yoga a couple times a day and thinking about how you're breathing and breathing fresh air in nature. So the coaching is, of course, really the major piece of what we do there, and we haven't talked about it yet. I like to see it as intensive coaching in this incredibly relaxed environment. And so what we cover in the CME part of the program is the coaching, whether you want CME or not. It's magical coaching. And I think that the retreats are a really beautiful way to do it if you are able to make it work in your life, because you get it all done at the same time. And so many of us are very efficient people, but you do it in this environment where your nervous system is set up to take in the coaching. And so together, it's like this, I will say like coaching on steroids, because you're in the perfect environment to have it literally change your cells and have you retrain your thought patterns. But, you know, I'm curious on your view as you see us, but I think it's fun. I mean, I hear people laughing and I hear people changing. I mean, people do cry too, but it's all the things, right? It's like just this really beautiful transformation experience. And I would say that I of course think I coach differently or uniquely. And I'm curious to hear what you hear other people say. But I think what I would say about it is it's a unique opportunity to do small group coaching with the same people in an intensive period of time. And yet it's fun and easy and natural. And we do it in different spots, by the pool, in the living room, by the fire. There's lots of options and places where we sit down and do the work of the retreat. But I just see huge transformations in people who've actually maybe done coaching somewhere else, who come to the retreat and will go home and change their job, or go home and make a long-term decision, something they've been trying to do for a long time. By pulling yourself out of your normal environment and doing the coaching there, I think it allows people to have some clarity about things that maybe they didn't have, because there's stillness and quiet and space to think about it. And so what I hear is people leave changed and they go back changed. And I actually was just a guest on someone else's podcast who'd come on the retreat, and she was telling me all the things that had changed like permanently. And she came in March. And so this is 9 months later, change is still happening. So what do you hear from people? So Mark's in the kitchen cooking, and a lot of people wander into the kitchen, I don't know, for snacks or for a chat or whatever. So I know you hear, especially on I'll call them the slower days where I'm doing one-on-one coaching. And so you have a chance to interact with people, or some people who love to cook, hang out in the kitchen a lot. What do people share about the coaching experience, generically, of course?
They say great things. They say great things about you, but they also, it seems to be a common expression of wonder that people had no idea that they could feel like this, that they could make these changes. It's as if somebody gave them directions and recipes for the first time in their whole life. And I think it's a good mix. You do one-on-one coaching, which I think is important, and I see you doing that early. But a lot of it's people in a group, and I think it's very powerful that other people see other doctors have the same struggles and the same worries, and the solutions to one person's issue applies to lots of people's. And it's very gratifying. It makes me feel very proud of you, and I think people are getting a lot out of it.
And as you're mentioning the group, what comes to mind for me is that, every retreat, the group has been so different, and the conversations have been so different, and the topics that we coach on are so different. And while these thought patterns are the same, they're presenting differently in the people that come. And yet we've not had a group that sort of didn't have the same end product of leaving feeling changed and excited and inspired, and with a new sort of outlook on life.
I agree.
Curious, you also mentioned something to me about downtime, which I think is really important to share. And I don't generally see people in downtime, because when they're having downtime, I'm coaching, doing my one-on-one coaching. So I wanted you to reflect on that, because I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's cool too. I mean, you walk around and you see women doctors taking naps in hammocks. It looks like maybe that's the first time they ever did in their whole life. I see people coloring. I see people journaling. People taking pictures mindfully, and they they kind of look like they just got released from school on summer vacation. And it's a lot of fun to see people taking these lessons and turning inward to their own life and really getting a chance to reflect on all that they've learned and thought about.
And one of the things you said that struck me is that they all look content. And I have to reflect that it's taken me a lot of work to figure out how to be content, and coaching has helped with that. I know you're laughing. But it's also super rare for women doctors to find contentment. And so the fact that that was the word that you used to describe how they looked, I thought was pretty magical.
Yes, we'll have to get you some more contentment too, dear.
I need to come on my own retreat.
You do.
Well, I'm there, and actually, I think that's a great pivot to the next topic. I'm there, but I'm not peacefully, contentedly coloring. Do you want to share your thoughts on that?
In the sense that, it is a lot of work to make the magic happen. But I've been on even yoga retreats. I've been on fancy yoga retreats in fancy places with fancy yoga instructors, and they're fun. And the places are great, and the yoga you do twice a day is great, and that's kind of it. And the rest of the time you're on your own. And so you get nice pictures, and you have kind of a generally relaxing vacation. But I didn't feel any magic on those other retreats. So I think it's the intensive coaching aspect, the size, the focus on really transforming yourself that makes a difference.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that someone said to me last time is that they were really surprised that I was around the whole time, and then I was kind of in it and doing it with them. And I've heard you say that, maybe I should rest more, or maybe I should not give so much. And I just do because I can't help it and I love it. But I felt very seen last time when someone gave that as one of the things that surprised them about the retreat. So I appreciated that feedback. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and I'm sure you have an opinion on this, but that every retreat is different and every day is different. And so I'm personalizing and changing it, which means, of course, that for you as the chef, you're always having to check the whiteboard, but everyone else is checking the whiteboard as to what we're doing next and where we're going and when we're going to meet next. And I actually think personally, I love that piece of it because it keeps things flexible.
Yeah, other than trying to keep breakfast warm in the morning, it works great. But we don't do meals the same time every day. We're not very rigid on that. It's I think it's really, we're just trying to give people what they need and those specific individuals in that specific week. And sometimes it's earlier yoga or later dinner or longer time in meditation, and whatever it takes, we try to accommodate.
Well, and I think that's probably the beauty of a husband-wife couple doing it, right? You sort of know me and we can communicate in a pretty easeful way. There's no caterers, there's no sternos, there's no other agenda. And so I think that makes it a really beautiful and very different experience. So I want to talk about the food next. I know we've talked a little bit about it, but many people think the retreats are all about the food because your food is so photogenic and it's delicious. And without it, the retreats would be a lot less unique and special. It is absolutely something that is special that you can't find anywhere else. Except if you come to my house for dinner occasionally, you can find it there too. At least when we have a lot of people gathering, not on, people ask me if I eat like this every day. No. So it is also, I just want to add, a very intentional part of the retreat. And so before you get into your approach to cooking on the retreat, my intention as someone who's coaching and sort of, I'm responsible for the transformation part of the retreat. I think that, mindful eating and eating healthy, it's much more than what you eat. Now, you feed us amazing food, but it's also who you eat with and how you eat and where you eat and how you feel when you eat. And so the focus on the retreat is very much on nourishment for mind, body, and spirit. And so the eating, just like the yoga, is really an experience, and the family meal style and your specific intentions in cooking and creating that beauty of the food. And so the food isn't just about eating. I'm often known to say, because we'll be in yoga and we can hear you in the kitchen, and and we can smell what you're cooking in the kitchen. And so I think that actually is a food experience that people reflect on that's very different. And so there's an angst about food. You're not going out for food, but you're also getting this nourishment in other ways. The beauty of practicing yoga while hearing someone making you breakfast, it's awesome. So I think for many people, that actually adds to it. And the other thing that I've heard is that people really enjoy at least cooking one meal together once. Some people cook with you more and do more learning in the kitchen. But we do all sort of gather together to cook one meal together and learn some of your tips. But I think that the experience of the cooking goes well beyond the food. And many people say they like to channel Mark when they go home, your approach to cooking. They think you're a mindful cook, which I would agree, that you are in there loving it and enjoying it. And for many people who cook all the time, they just can't think, they don't think about cooking that way. So to watch someone do that is a unique perspective on preparing food with love and care and intention that we just get out of when we're rushing through life. So I wonder if you want to share a little bit about your unique approach to cooking, preparing the food, what's different, whatever you want to share about it.
I'm just mostly having a lot of fun, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to do that. There's few things I like as much as goofing around in the kitchen and serving people something that surprises and delights them. When we started the retreats, we wanted to do healthy plant-forward food, and everybody agrees that plant-forward food is good and healthy and vegetables are good. But sometimes I think people, they can't think of some way to make it interesting or fun. It's more like a chore, like taking vitamins or exercising or something. And so what I love about cooking is the surprise, the whimsy, the unexpected. And so that's what I try to do. So it's mostly vegetarian, all plant-forward food, but it's hopefully things that people haven't even thought about having before, let alone have before. And hopefully it's still simple enough that people can go home and do most of the recipes that they want. A lot of people tell me they cook at home, but they do the same kind of 5 or 10 meals, and they just kind of get in the routine and do that, and their family's in a routine. And hopefully some of these ideas can kind of break them out of the routine. And I think it's good for everybody, good for people who come, good for their families to see what you can really do with healthy food and become inspired with it, because I'm having a lot of fun with it. So certainly more fun than being an attorney.
I think it tastes better when someone who's preparing it is having fun, honestly. And of course, you make it beautiful, and you often talk about tasting with your eyes. And I think for many of us, we cannot envision that food would look like that, because in our families growing up, it didn't. I know in your family growing up, maybe it did, but not all the time. But certainly in my family, it didn't. And so I think for many, we didn't imagine that food could look that way. I've heard from many people that they go home re-inspired to cook. They were burnt out, not only on medicine, but also on cooking. And that the way that you approach food brings some fun and lightness and creativity to their own cooking. And I get lots of texts of pictures of people making your food when they get home. And
yeah, sometimes they look better than mine. It's great.
It's fun to see that, and to see what their children might eat or not eat, and to see them trying it and creating the retreat at home. And so I think that's something that's just really fun. We even had one person who came home and started teaching her child to cook, and they started making some of the dishes together, what cooking had been something she really didn't enjoy, and it became a thing that they could share in. So that's really cool.
And then that child takes their love for their whole life and passes it down. I mean, that's how I learned. My mom taught me. So
yeah, I also
hear occasionally that people are worried about vegetarian food and they have not ever eaten vegetarian for a whole week, and that they thought it was hard and maybe not very good. And so I just want to share that for any of you who are hearing this, if you're worried about it, don't worry. I'm never feeling shorted. I'm not a vegetarian at home because I have 3 young adult sons who are all carnivores, but I love eating vegetarian at the retreats, and I don't feel shorted at all. I feel healthier, happier, and better nourished than at other times. And so I think the intent is really to inspire you that vegetarian food can be amazing and as nourishing, and you can feel great. And then the other piece that I think is really important to people is feeling cared for, as having you as the chef caring for them. And they feel like your food is literally infused with love and infused with care. And I think for many women who do a lot of the cooking, they don't have that experience. And so to have someone treat them in that way for a week, it's just a very different eating experience. And I'm going to say even than Esalen. And I know I said this somewhere and people said, well, I don't think your experience could be better than Esalen. And I will say the food experience is way better than Esalen, having been to both a few times, because of your cooking and because of that personal attention and the way that the food is prepared and the single table where we're sharing a meal together, all the meals together all the time. And that it is just very much a different experience.
So another way to get people out of their routines, especially if they're generally the ones cooking at home and they're rushing home from work and time is short and food's an afterthought. It's just, it's a lot more fun to have a private chef cooking for you every day. So it gives you a chance to step back and worry less and relax more.
So a word about the cost, because the retreats are not cheap. And I just want to point that out. People worry about it. They worry about investing in themselves. And my thought is nobody at the end thought it was too expensive. Never heard that. And that, well, it's very hard for us to invest in ourselves in this way. It's an amazing investment in your family and your future and your career. And I just don't hear people on the other end complaining in any way, shape, or form. Many people will gift it to themselves as a birthday gift or a trip with friends or a Mother's Day gift. And or they'll come with med school friends or residency friends or someone from their team. And that can make it even more special. But I would encourage you to come even by yourselves. Many, many people come not knowing someone. I think sometimes people think they can't come if they don't have someone to come with. It's almost better if you come alone, because you really get to have your own experience. And, we've toyed around with the idea, we could make it bigger. It would change the experience. We could not offer one-on-one coaching and make it bigger. That would change the experience. We could be cooking for 10 or 15. That would change the experience. And so all of these things might make it cheaper, but it wouldn't be able to be the same thing. And we've decided, I think, to stay small, keep it small, have fun, and make it amazing. And so that's an intentional choice. And I would encourage you to try it, because I think you'll also agree. I hear at the end people saying, oh my gosh, please don't make it bigger. Please don't do this. I wondered, please don't change it. And so I just encourage you to try it and gift yourself the possibility. So
I think we'll exceed everyone's expectations. I think we always do.
Yeah. So as we end, I want to invite you to join us. If you're inspired, you absolutely should try it. And all the spring 2024 wildflower retreats are open for signups, and there are a couple spots left. And there will be some fall dates coming out at some point soon. If you have questions, reach out. Lots of people email me with questions about the details and where to fly. It's actually all there on the webpage if you click the frequently asked questions. But feel free to reach out, because one of the things I think is so fun about it is it's really a personal homegrown endeavor. And so send your questions and we're happy to help support you in figuring out how to get there and answer any other questions that you might have.
stay on after the singing bowl for today's mindful moment. It will be some kind of special Sagrada offering. I'm not quite sure yet, but that's always the thing when you join us at Sagrada, is you never know until you show up what's happening. And I'm certain that it will be fun and moment of peace and joy and reflection. And we have been encouraging you in the last few podcasts to join us for the mindful moments, and clarifying that they are our gift as a way to practice mindfulness with myself or Nicheng, or sometimes people who are our guests. And they are something that are not offered in most other podcasts. And you can go to Headspace or Calm, but these are different. And so if you want to practice with us and experience different short practices, we offer all different kinds of things for everyone's enjoyment. Check them out. They happen after the singing bowl, and they're 5 to 10 minute easy, quick practices so that you can begin to integrate mindfulness into your life and figure out what you like and figure out what works for you. So we hope you'll join us for those. And Mark and I hope you'll join us at Sagrada or for any of the other retreats that I offer. Mark actually does cooking for many of them, all of them to some degree. And so you get the benefit of his cooking there. Many people ask me what the best retreat is, and I think I'll end on that. And I would say this retreat we've been speaking about is the best retreat because it's the longest retreat. So you get to do more of it, and you get more space and time to do the work. And if all you can do is one day, then do one day. Dip a toe in and begin the work on your own. It's amazing. And for many people in their lives, if you have a small baby or something like that, one day is all you can do. Or if you really want to work on growing a mindfulness practice, this 5-day retreat is amazing. The Connect in Nature is also very much focused on mindfulness. And that retreat I do with Nicheng, and Mark does quite a bit of the cooking and back-end support. But that retreat is more focused on mindfulness, a lot less on coaching. And so when I get asked the difference, the retreat we've been speaking of today is the coaching retreat, and that's the one where you get the most coaching. And the other two retreats are a blend of coaching and mindfulness and a lot of other wellness modalities. They're amazing, but different. So if you have questions about which retreat is right for you, reach out as well. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you again next week, I hope.
Thanks.
As always, if you want to declutter your mind, be more present, and start truly living your one wild and precious life, come find us at the mindfulhealerspodcast.com.
Work with one of us.
Work with both of us.
Start or uplevel your mindfulness practice.
Discover how mindful coaching can change your life.
Or even better, do both as part of our Mindful Healers programs and retreats. You can find links to find out more about our programs and join our communities at themindfulhealerspodcast.com.
Reach out and get started on your journey to a life better lived today.
The content of this podcast is not meant to be medical or life advice. If you choose to participate in our mindful moments, please do so safely.
Welcome to today's mindful moment. Taking a moment to arrive, to pause, and to, with intention, come into your body. Coming back to the breath, noticing how you feel. Notice the feet on the floor or your sit bones on the chair. Reconnect your ischial spines into the earth, tilt your pelvis, and grow your spine tall towards the sky. And I invite you to bring your hand to heart. Hand on heart, checking in with your heart space. Something that we do at the Sagrada retreat all the time. It's a practice that we practice so that it feels comfortable when you go home. It's almost a habit, a reminder of a beautiful experience. And as you sit, hand on hand, hand on heart, or stand, hand on hand, hand on heart, checking in with your heart, thinking about your wishes and your desires. What is it time for? Big or small, it doesn't matter. I know that you know that it's time for something. The minutes are ticking and the hours are gonging. What is it time for in your life? Time for joy, compassion, freedom, health, patience, honesty. Time to clean out something or dig into something. Time to get to know the person who resides inside you or beside you. Time to forgive, forget, remember, move on, move in. Time to live lightly, live loudly. It is time. What will it be? Taking a moment to listen to your heart. What is it time for you to do? What do you need to invest time and energy into in order to help you do that? What would you like to do? What do you want to do? What is it time to do? What have you had enough of? What do you want more of? What is it time for? Listening to that heart space. And in the stillness and in the quiet, listening for some clarity. And if your mind is still going quickly, come back to the breath, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Noticing your nervous system. Does it need time and care and attention? Noticing your energy level. Does it need some time and care and attention? Noticing whether you judge yourself and where you are in your life and what you've done so far and what you haven't. Do you need to spend some time learning to be kind to yourself? Practicing being kind to yourself. Actually being kind to yourself. Figuring out what is kind to yourself. Breathing in kindness to yourself. And allowing yourself to see what it's time for you. Perhaps it's time to join me on the mountaintop and explore and get more clarity about what it's time for. I would love to share it with you. And the reading I shared at the very beginning is from one of my favorite yoga books that I read from often on the mountaintop. By Janet Archer. And the passage is called It's Time. I only read a small portion of it. I hope that you will choose to join me on the mountaintop and enjoy lots of hand to heart, lots of time, lots of clarity, lots of peace, lots of community, and lots of laughter.
For most of us, it's time for more of that. The light in me honors and reflects the light in each and every one of you. Have a beautiful week. Namaste.